Hello, and welcome to another episode of the podcast where we will reassure you that football is fixable. Alright, Seth.
Alright.
Yeah, it's just every week. So you need to start doing other accents now.
It's my natural London accent.
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
That's what you like off air, isn't it?
Like Henri, I always say, don't I? He always goes, it's...
Sort of slick French accent.
yeah,
and stuff.
and then cut. Oh, can't keep that accent up all day long,
God,
you know.
Yeah, give me a fag.
Yeah.
Oh, and a point. That's how I say it, right?
A point.
A point.
Yeah.
It's like,
That's how he says it.
Proper Londoners have to walk a bit kind of,
Yeah, they got to walk sideways through doors, don't they? Because the elbows come out.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. If you're from London, do keep your thoughts to yourself. Anyway, this week's test. Did you?
Yeah.
You know? So our last week's episode, right?
Yeah.
What was it on? Do you remember?
Boring football? Football
Yeah.
being boring.
Football being boring.
Yeah.
Well, do you know what TalkSport did the following day?
Oh, they haven't stolen... They keep stealing it. They haven't done it in a few weeks, fair enough. But are they back to it?
Exactly. That's exactly it. They were talking about how football is becoming boring. Just after, and you can look at the timestamps and stuff,
Yeah.
we released our episode, and suddenly, it's suspicious, this, you know? You could call it coincidence, but...
No, I mean, coincidence if it happens once or twice, but this is
Exactly.
happening every few weeks for us.
It's regular, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
at least once a month or something. We're sort of
Yeah.
suddenly... And after the Dark Arts one, it happened a couple of weeks ago then. We released it
Yeah.
and suddenly Dark Arts is everywhere.
Yeah,
So what do we know, eh?
we are trendsetters.
We
and
literally are.
yeah, our dozen listeners know this.
They know this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they know who sets the trends.
Yeah.
But if those
Just wanna
dozen
see how that
people
works.
tell a dozen people each, then that's 144 people will know. And then if they tell a dozen each, then that's a lot more people.
Good,
that
more
will
maths.
know.
Yes.
Yeah.
So if you can figure the maths out for us,
Yeah.
let us know. No, on that, actually, do please follow. We get lots of positive feedback, which is great. But you following us on Spotify and any of the socials, if you're on Facebook, Instagram, what are the other ones? X. Used to be called, they always say that, don't they?
Yeah.
Formerly Twitter.
Yeah.
So that's part of the name.
Yeah. They
And,
should have just kept
TikTok.
it Twitter. I just
Yeah,
don't
he
understand.
bought the name for it.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're not fixing social.
Yeah.
Anyway, so please do follow us. It really makes a huge difference, even if you just turn your notifications off, but don't do that anyway. Just follow.
Yeah. Why did you tell offer that? Yeah.
Can we edit
Don't
that
listen
out?
to it.
Don't listen to that bit. In the news this
Hmm.
week, so it's International Week.
You know what? I like England. Like watching England, I like internationals. Nations League is just a glorified friendly.
Oh, it's it's so boring.
Yeah.
I miss the Premier League.
Yeah, I don't really bother watching it anymore.
Yeah, there's kind of because there's lots of people say, oh gosh, so you see it on the socials actually, but you know, people saying it's boring and why do we have to do this? And then somebody put a post up saying, well, Wembley is packed out, 90,000. You know that must show that people are enjoying it. So, God, it's just you hear the atmosphere though. Well, can't have been enjoying it that much. Although saying that, did you see any of the games, Seth?
No, I didn't actually.
Well, the first
I watched
game
the
I'm
highlights.
talking
But, yeah. The thing about the packed stadiums, I hear this quite often in things like boxing and stuff like that. If you have a game where 90,000 people watched it on TV, that's a failure.
Oh yeah,
So
true.
it doesn't matter if there's 90,000 in the stadium.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Yeah, so take that,
Yeah.
whoever you are.
What, the band?
Oh no. If you take that and you want to come on to the episode,
Nice.
there you go.
Try and get Gary Barlow on.
Exactly. So we're recording this before the second England game on Sunday. This might reflect that performance as well. But Thursday's performance even against Greece.
Yeah.
Oh, I was watching some of it. I was saying who watches this. I was actually watching bits of it. But it's my job, as Roy Keane would say. As a influencer, as a sports, as a football podcaster.
Leading influencer. What did we say at the beginning? We're trendsetters.
Yeah, and we are global, as we've said before.
That is true.
We do have listeners from all over the place.
4 continents, I'd say.
There you go.
Yeah.
Watching that game against Greece, it was all over the place. I think it could be a blessing in disguise in some ways, because I was growing increasingly more worried that they're going to give Lee Carsley the job. I know he's an Everton legend, and you're going to defend him and everything, but I watched the under-21s a lot when he was, because I used to follow Smith Rowe, and they had some great players in there to go and watch. And tactically, I just couldn't really see exactly what he's doing for England. The senior team against Greece, it was all over the place.
Yeah, I don't want to defend him because I don't think necessarily based on this he should get it, but also it's a bit harsh to just rate him based on this game because
true. Yeah.
Gary Lineker was saying it was an experiment that didn't work. And you've got to give it to him that he did try something
bold enough
else
to try it.
Yeah,
and he is bold.
Very bold, yeah. But I can't really see anyone else at the moment. What England or the FA seem to be doing, quite obviously, is holding out for Pep to resign.
Nothing
from
to
City.
see here, but Pep, when you retire,
Yeah.
when are you leaving Man City again?
Yeah, they're just constantly like, we're not looking at names at the moment.
Yeah,
It just seems quite obvious that's what they're holding out for. But otherwise, Eddie Howe, he's not going to leave a cushy job at Newcastle to manage England and ruin his career.
Yeah, that's the thing. Is he ready to go? I don't know.
It's a career ender, the England job.
Yeah, it can be. Unless you're maybe out of work at the moment. There's like Graham Potter.
Graham Potter, yeah, I heard
shout.
that today. That's a decent shout. I quite like that.
I like his style of play that he puts into his teams and everything.
Yeah, unfortunately for that England game, it's the Everton legend manager. He kind of failed us in that sense, and also the current Everton player Pickford. He looked like he was playing on Greece.
Yeah,
rather than against it.
In the very early minutes, there was a few against Greece. This was, and exactly. And he kind of looked like he lost his head a bit.
Yeah,
there was a mistake where Greece almost scored because he basically gave it to them.
Yeah,
and he ran out. But then after that, he was flapping at corners and this kind of thing.
Yeah.
So it wasn't the best performance from the England players either. But the formation, did you see the formation?
Yeah,
it was like 4-2-2-2 with no striker, and the spine of the team wasn't really there. You had Palmer in kind of the number 6 kind of anchor role with Rice.
Yeah, you basically had 3 players that kind of wanted to float into that 10.
It's like 3 number
position.
10s.
Yeah.
You can't, having one number 10 opens up. Some teams don't even have a proper number 10. They have to be really restrictive, like we were talking on a previous episode about positions and things. But we had 3 number 10s, Palmer, like you say, Foden and Bellingham.
Bellingham played well. I thought he was quite good. But it just didn't work. And I think a lot of it, there's just fatigue when it comes to the Nations League, and I kind of feel as though it's portrayed by the players as well. That's why there's so many injuries all the time.
Oh, don't get me started, because Saka went off, didn't he?
Yeah.
By Monday, when this episode comes out, we might know now the kind of extent of it, but it's worrying us Arsenal fans anyway.
Yeah.
It's a hamstring strain, the latest news is at the point of recording. So.
Yeah, and that's going to be Saka and Ødegaard.
Yeah, Ødegaard on the last one as well. But we've had 2 international breaks, and we're only 7 games into the league at the moment.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Bonkers, this. So one way to fix football already is to get rid of these blooming pointless friendlies.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, that'll solve the argument for too many games for these huge players.
Oh, God, get into that, yeah.
Yeah, which brings me on to the next bit of news. Your favourite man, Martin Keown.
Oh, yeah, Invincible legend, yeah.
Yeah. So, I've always said he says really smart things on TalkSport. I agree with 100% of what he says.
Oh, right.
Oh, no, wait, that's the complete opposite. So he decided to bring up on Monday about this whole too many games thing. He completely agrees with Rodri and the players that they play too many games.
Oh, Martin.
Yeah.
He says some good stuff as well.
Yeah.
Just not that one.
The annoying thing is, he's not recent, not too far in the distance, not so recently retired.
That's the one.
That's the one, yeah.
2004 it was.
Yeah. Oh, that's quite a long time ago.
For some of our listeners, that's before they were born.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't realise that. But it's not like he's the Souness kind of generation. He's only the generation before, technically.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And so he should know that it's normal to be playing the number of games that Rodri has, for example.
Yeah, Keown would have been he was one of the squad players some seasons, but in general, Arsenal were in all the competitions. Yeah. Back then, we were...
He would have played for England as well.
Yeah, he was one of the champions for Arsenal back then. So we played in all the top Champions League, all going far into competitions.
Yeah, and at the very least, I would have expected him to do his research. Have a look at the stats. Like we did. We quite easily looked at, Souness and Dalglish for the generation 50-odd years
Previous
ago.
Before,
and then, Shearer, Gerrard for the generation after that. And then we looked at Rodri, Bernardo, the big players
to
now.
actually look at it more empirically, to study it and measure it.
The number of games is exactly the same. If anything, I think we saw that 40-odd years ago, they played more games.
Dalglish actually broke what Rodri's playing now, I think you said.
Yeah, exactly. So I just kind of expected Keown to either know better because he only finished playing 20 years ago, or to have done his research. But instead, he's just decided to take the word of Rodri and these players. And what are they saying then? Because they have to play the Club World Cup, the other 19 teams in the Premier League have to just maneuver their fixtures in order to accommodate City.
Yeah, a small minority.
Yeah. And it just goes
Bonkers.
back to this whole thing. It's the managers picking the players. Why are the managers getting away with it? Why is Pep getting away with it? Pep's just sat there going, I can't believe I've got away with this. I'll just join them and say, it's too many games.
You are, Rodri, you should really fight your corner.
Yeah, you should
there.
really fight. By the way, Rodri, you're on. You're on
that. By the way, in the next game, you're playing tomorrow.
Yeah, yeah. He's the one picking them, and yet for some reason they're just moaning about the number of tournaments that City's in. City is in these tournaments. Rodri isn't having to play these games. He can sit out any tournament he wants.
And City have the most privileged squad out of all squads.
Yeah.
They've spent ridiculous amounts of
he's
money.
lucky enough to be Spanish, playing for Spain. If you say to Rodri, all right, fair enough, in the World Cup in 2026, you don't have to play.
Yeah.
You can bet your life he will absolutely want to play that.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, fine. You won't play any Champions League game. Oh, you do want to play Oh, right, okay.
Yeah. And the thing is, he rests often. Like Pep would rotate the team for the League Cups and the FA Cups and stuff. Yeah, exactly. He rotates them anyway. Even though Rodri's one of the normal starters in the League Cup, he's going to be rested for most of those games. So and as the stats show, he doesn't play as many games necessarily as
you need. The managers need to manage the players instead of just playing all your best players the whole time until suddenly they're burnt out. How about you manage it? So you go, you know what? I'll play Rodri against Arsenal, but I won't play him against whoever's bottom, for example.
Like
something
Ipswich
like that.
Or Southampton or something. Apologies if you're an Ipswich.
I didn't want to say. I just said whoever's bottom.
I know they're roughly around there.
You decided to point them out. That's fine.
I have a lot of respect for those teams. Well, talking about Man City, so big news in the last week or so. Did you hear the news came out and City really jumped on it and started saying, "Oh, victory, victory, victory!"
Yeah.
So they got a victory against the Premier League.
Yeah.
For the associated party transactions case, which isn't to do with the 115 charges.
Yeah.
Although a lot of the sort of tabloids and headlines and stuff going out there kind of just said victory against the Premier League. They're trying to make it seem like.
Yeah, it's like the sponsorship loans from associated companies.
These a lot, especially like Man City, for example, but there are other clubs as well.
Yeah.
The top clubs are kind of owned by businessmen or almost companies or consortiums that have links to other companies.
Yeah.
Don't they? So in terms of you choose them and you can get those companies to sponsor you and they give you inflated amounts. It's not a reasonable amount what a market level would pay, sort of thing. And City did get the people on the panel to in the hearing to agree with them. So there was but only on two kind of counts, if you like. There was apparently around 25. So they fought 25 points in court related to the ATP rules.
Yeah.
They lost 23 of them. But that wasn't in the headline. Man City released a statement, and also Man City have a lot of associated media outlets and things like that. They were trying to push it through. So they're trying to kind of
they're trying
their
to
image
inflate it a lot more. I would say the two that they won do seem like some of the biggest ones. So even though it's 2 versus 23, it's not like a football match, 23-2.
Exactly,
you know.
And also the principle of it as well, too. The fact that the Premier League need to now go and kind of rethink a few of the... It's more the wording and how they implement a couple of those things. The principle of ATP still exists, and it's going to still exist. They just need to change some of the wording because it's against anti-competition laws and things that they breach with or something or other.
Yeah.
But, Man City really, I saw a comment online, sort of celebrating loopholes, celebrating lawyers, celebrating accountants. It's not what football you really should be about, to be honest, but that's what they're doing. It's a kind of war.
They're happy about it, aren't they? So many City fans, we've already said it before, we've heard City fans saying they don't care. They've got their trophies and stuff. If they get demoted to the Championship, they're fine with it. It'll come back up. They've still got all the money.
Yeah, it's not a long term. You've said that a lot.
Yeah.
And with that, let's get into the episode.
Let's do it.
So in this episode, we're talking about fixing defending. I mean, we know this, and I say we know this because obviously we're very influential and aware of what we're talking about.
I was about to say, neither of us are defenders. But
no,
right.
but we do know this. We've watched a lot of football. We've been around for over 3.5 decades now.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I know.
Thanks.
Yeah, it's funny we call Coops the old man, but he's younger than most of us.
Yeah, he's the young one.
He's
yeah.
the youth, actually, worryingly. But
he brings in the youth, doesn't he? Really, really feel it.
Yeah,
when he's
yeah,
falling
definitely,
asleep
yeah.
on the sofa.
if you fell asleep 3 or 4 times whilst recording an episode.
Yeah.
Anyway, so fixing defending. If defending, Cess, has got worse. I don't care what they say or who they are, even.
Yeah.
Defending
who are they?
Who
you
are
know?
they? Exactly. Defending is worse these days. We've seen so many more goals being scored, and it's so annoying because people seem to base their opinions on who the best players are by how many goals they scored. You know, when we fixed stats last season, people use the stats like this to say, "Oh, he's the greatest." So, and when they then compare these players, like Haaland right now, for example, and the numbers he's getting, not considering the team he's in, the surface they're playing on, but they're comparing him to great players of old. You know, and when I say old, I mean old, our generation.
Are
old.
you finding another way to call us old?
We are old, aren't we? Shearer, you know,
Yeah.
all-time Premier League goal scorer, leading goal scorer. Thierry Henry, you know, Aguero, all these Suarez, all these brilliant players. Van Nistelrooy, it's more, you know, so many brilliant players. And you'll say Haaland's better than all of them, and he's only a few years, you know, into his career almost, and he's already great. It's like, hang on a minute, you've got to consider the context.
Yeah, and also the other way with the defenders, we've said it so many times. Now the first thing that they're rated on is how many assists and goals they get.
Yeah, well, that tells you
nothing
exactly.
nothing to do with the actual defending.
Clean sheets and all that as well.
Yeah.
And to bear in mind that clean sheets are a team achievement, aren't they,
Yeah.
really? So all 4 players in the back, 4 or 5 or 3, however many in that formation, plus the keeper, will get that clean sheet stat if you have one.
Yeah.
So that tells you already that it's not an individual thing. People like to, we were saying this in the news, they individualise awards and things in a team sport. It's crazy.
And the goals should actually be a team thing as well.
Yeah.
Because it's not just, unless the striker goes over to the keeper, gets the ball, runs all the way through and scores, does an R9 or David Ginola-esque
Sort
thing.
of shimmy. And,
unless they
top of the
do
shoulder.
that, it's not an individual goal.
Yeah.
They just finish off a certain move that the entire team did.
Yeah, exactly what Bernardo Silva was saying. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's the same as saying, Arsenal got a clean sheet, so that's going to go to Saliba and no one else. Why?
Yeah. I mean, he might be the catalyst and he might help glue things together. You might say Van Dijk at Liverpool, he definitely lifts there.
Yeah.
I mean, you can see from the eye test alone how great a player he is.
Yeah.
But there's no doubt that defending has got worse, and we're going to tell you why.
We are. And on that, I've got some stats for goals scored. I think it's fair to just look at the Premier League because, as far as I know, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's when football started. Was in 1992.
Football didn't exist before 1992, did it?
Perfect.
Yeah.
Well, that's all right then. So what I did, I discounted 1992 to 1995.
Why would you do that, Cess?
Because I'm glad you asked, James. That is because they played 42 games then.
Yeah, there were 22 teams in the league, weren't there, I think, or something
Yeah.
like that. We were actually quite young then.
We were, yeah.
So
we wouldn't have known then.
No.
Yeah, so now that they do 380 games per season, we're going to go from 1995 onwards.
So 38-game seasons, from the civilised world onwards, sort of. Like.
Yes, exactly, yeah.
More civilised age.
So in terms of the number of goals scored, you're looking around about the 1,000 mark per season. However, the first 10 years, you've got 5 seasons out of the 10 where they go past the 1,000 goal mark for all 20 teams.
Right.
5 out of the 10 seasons where they go over 1,000 goals. The next 10 years, 6 out of the 10 are over 1,000. And in the most recent 10 years, only 1 season has it not gone over 1,000.
Wow.
So each decade, you can see a trend. There's more and more. And in fact, last season broke all the records. It went to 1,200, over 1,200 goals. And none of the rest have actually gone over 1,100.
Wow.
So it's a huge surge of goals.
Yeah, and we fixed stats last year. We always need to sort of take, as Coop said, actually, use stats with a pinch of salt in a sense. We should use it as a guide, but there's loads of factors that could be contributing to that as well. We could just say, strikers are better, but if you think that, then that's not true.
Yeah.
It just isn't.
Yeah.
So we think about the pitches, we think about the game's been moved into a more attacking. We said this before, haven't we?
Yeah.
The principles behind football is now how many goals can we score rather than how many goals can we keep out.
Yeah.
The game has evolved in a more attacking sense, and defenders as well. Defenders, like you say, are now measured on goals and assists.
Yeah.
Like Trent, for example. He's
Yeah.
a brilliant defender. Look how many assists he's got.
Yeah, you can see the evolution going towards even now Postecoglou's style. Tactics have now basically begun to... It's almost like everybody has now got to contribute towards the goal in some way. From keeper onwards, they have to find a way to contribute towards the goal. Whereas, in the 90s and the early noughties, can you ever imagine Schmeichel being told, by the way, you need to start a movement?
Yeah,
you need to create something.
Considered by many of our generation and older to sort of believe that he's one of the greatest keepers this country's seen, especially in Premier League era anyway.
Yeah.
Which is when football existed anyway.
Yeah.
I don't remember him passing out from the back, It's not something that was ever done.
No, so he'd never even consider it. If he suddenly started passing to Gary Neville, and then Gary Neville passes it across the penalty box to John O'Shea, then you'd be like, "Oh, what are you doing?"
Yeah, absolutely. I remember as growing up in like Tony Adams, if a ball went across the 18-yard box, he'd absolutely rollick whichever teammate did that. That is a no-no. That's like the first rule of defending: do not pass it across.
Yeah,
box.
absolutely.
Now it's the first rule of defending is to pass it across your box. It's completely flipped.
Yeah, completely. And also the number of goals scored, the highest number of goals scored per season. If you look at again from 1995, the first 10 years, none of them went over 100 goals. Next 10 years, there's 2 seasons where they managed to hit the 100 mark. And again, this season, the last 10 years, Man City, I think, have... they've got 9 of the last 10 years they've been the top scorers.
Oh, that's a surprise.
Yeah, but they broke the record with 106 goals again, and they're constantly hitting the 90s, the hundreds. It might only be minuscule, if you look at it in the grand scheme of things.
Kind of thing.
Yeah, but it's certainly on the up.
It's a trend, it's an upward trend.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I love it when you bring the stats in. I mean, there's loads of reasons behind this as well. Like we say, the pitches, everything's made easier to score goals.
Yeah. There's also been a lot of talk, especially this season, but quite a lot last season, about passing out from the back. And I want your opinion on this, because your opinion is probably wrong anyway.
I'm the host. I'm the main lead host of a leading football podcast.
Yeah, are you? Yeah. Second in command, aren't you? Yeah. So passing out from the back has been a big topic because it's a risky strategy, and it's almost, I suppose you could see it as a high risk, high reward situation.
Yeah.
And that's why a lot of teams do it. And almost every team is doing it. Pep almost made it popular for everyone around the world, in a sense. And there's so many people like Alan Shearer. There's basically the pundits 50 and over. They absolutely hate it,
don't they? Again, it's just so against the mindset of what we were brought up.
Exactly. Yeah. If because they never really played in that. Imagine Shearer. If he was playing in a tactic of playing out from the back, God, you'd be having nightmares every week.
Yeah, no. Also, from a striker, that's going to impact on you. The type of goals you're scoring would be way different. The type of goals we're seeing a lot more of, like Haaland scores these days.
Different.
Not like the goals Shearer would score outside the box and headers inside the box and those styles. You don't really see much of them anymore.
Yeah. So for me, passing out from the back is, although you see it as a high risk, high reward situation, I see it also as a way to minimise certain risks. Because the idea of passing out from the back, well, there's 2 ideas. Firstly, is that you want to minimise the risk of losing possession. Because if you're route oneing into the halfway line, you've suddenly given yourself a 50-50 chance of getting the ball. Yeah. However, if you pass to your players at the back, then that you are maintaining possession. So you minimise the risk of losing possession. And then my second theory about passing out from the back is that you give yourself the maximum chance to make the opposition play the way you want. Again, if you route one it, then it's kind of potluck as to what's going to happen, where it's going to go.
Kind of throwing it up in the air and hoping, literally, in a sense.
Yeah, and, you can try and get the goalkeeper to practice exactly where to put it and stuff, but effectively, you're giving everyone 50-50 chance. Yeah. Whereas if you're playing out from the back, then you kind of draw the opposition's high press, so you get them to go into the position you want, so you can manipulate the space, like what Brighton did against Spurs, for example. So it's risky, absolutely, but it's also maximizing your ability to utilize the space and make them play the way you want. Because that's what I've mentioned to you before. A good team will have a great strategy to play their way. A great team will have a great strategy to make the opposition play the way you want.
Yeah.
We've played in games before in Sunday League and stuff where we're kind of chasing shadows, because basically they
play the top sides in the division and things sometimes.
They make us run around so much. They play us effectively, and we're playing their game the entire 90 minutes.
Yeah.
And great teams will do that. That's what City did so great for ages when they were playing out from the back, and when they Barcelona as well with Pep. They basically started the whole tiki-taka situation where people were chasing shadows, and you can see some of them just giving up. Like, I'm not chasing that.
Yeah, I think Alex Ferguson called it the carousel of movement, wasn't it? Yeah, it was just endless passing until you just fed up and bored and you just concede.
Which is fair enough. I mean, imagine being told, try and get the ball off Busquets, Iniesta, or Xavi in the middle. Yeah. Yeah, good luck with that. So it is definitely high risk, and it also means that you will be closer to your goal when you have the ball in play. So the risk is higher in terms of...
It's nearer the danger area.
Yeah, if the play is switched, if they manage to pin you down, like I think Spurs did actually against Brighton.
Yeah, they did, yeah.
Then it does mean that they've got a chance of scoring. However, you give yourself the opportunity to be able to get them to play the way you want. And we said it before that now everything is more geared towards getting a goal.
Rather than keeping a clean sheet.
Yeah, so if that's at the expense of conceding a goal, then it'll give you more of a chance to be able to score a goal. So I think that's why a lot of teams want to play out from the back. It does mean, teams like Burnley last season, for example, shouldn't have carried on doing it if they've proven time and time again they can't do it. However, it's because they want to. They know that that's the best way if you have the right players and the right coaching to be able to utilize space. They just didn't have the players or the coach to be able to actually finish it off.
Yeah, and that's where, you're saying you want my opinion on this. So this is where I feel, should you do it or shouldn't you?
Yeah.
It depends on the players you've got. You mentioned Barcelona, you mentioned Man City, Arsenal. Pep popularised it. I agree with that point you made. He's made it popular around the world. Arsene Wenger was doing this 20, 25 years ago, passing out from the back, one of the very few teams.
I'd just like to say, this is the same thing that Simon said to Keown, bringing Arsenal into every conversation.
Well, people think, Pep created, he's invented passing out from that. He didn't. Go and watch, a lot of people think the Invincibles.
I don't think anyone ever said that. From the 70s, you've seen Brazil passing out from the back.
I mean, most people would go, from the older generation would quote the Brazil, reference to the Brazil teams. Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing, Arsene Wenger was seen as one of the most beautiful football playing teams, the way his style would, because of the way we pass out and pass through the team. And that was it. We dominated and controlled the game in the earlier days before. Now controlling the game around the box and tick-a-taka and stuff like that is now kind of taken it into a new direction.
Yeah.
But in terms and I put something on our socials this week and what some of our stories on Facebook, Instagram and stuff about, got some stats from Opta around the teams so you quote Burnley from last season, Southampton this season, their style of play, they are in the same quadrant as Man City in terms of slow and positional passing all the way out. I've got all the teams on a diagram to show where they're direct and where they're not, and I'm not going to talk through them all now.
Yeah.
But in terms of, I think it's naive for teams in the Premier League, if you're Southampton, if you're Burnley, you don't have the same quality, and I don't mean that in a disrespectful way, but they haven't got
you're having a go at Southampton again as well. I've just noticed.
I've got, like I say, a load of respect for them, but they haven't got the money to buy the players like the De Bruynes, like the Rodris, like that. So you need players like a Rodri defensively to be able to protect from any turnovers, but also you need De Bruynes and the Bernardo Silvas and the Fodens and things to be able to pass it through a team. When Burnley were doing it last, where did Burnley end up? Back in the Championship. They got relegated. They just kept conceding goals. You might argue that they didn't score enough and stuff, but they had clean sheets. They had so few, they were just shipping goals away. And this is where I want to bring a few other stats in, just before there's not too many more stats.
And another one.
And just another thing. Stats-wise from Opta, one of the game official and analysis people.
Analyzers.
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah.
So goals ending from what we call high turnovers per game. So the high turnover is when the forwards, the opposition team, win it off of your defence.
Okay.
So it typically would be because of a mistake or something like that.
Like what Spurs did against Brighton. Yeah.
That's the other good thing about the Prem these days is teams are really good at pressing high. So we're causing a lot of mistakes from teams. So unless you're really good at passing off on the back, you shouldn't be doing it. But anyway, these stats show up to 23-24 last season. Comparing all the way back to 2014-15, it was 0.17 per game, kind of on average, kind of the ratio, if you like.
Okay.
Now it's 0.34. There's been a constant 0.17, 19, 17, 19, 17, 21, 22, 21, 26, 34 last season.
So again, it doesn't sound like too much. However, this is over the course of a whole season, and it's a definite
clear trend.
Yeah.
An upward trend, absolutely. So in terms of the number of mistakes, and that's because more and more teams are passing out from the back. And some teams can do it really well, but it's doing it consistently, and when it's picking the moments, I think. That's what you hear a lot of pundits saying it. Would you choose to do it against certain opposition? You need to adapt to the opposition you're playing. Arsenal pass out from the back, but we also go long. We're one of the teams, again, going back to Opta, we are actually quite direct a lot of the time. And that's because we trained David Raya and how we where to aim it. It's often to the far right of the pitch. We've got Kai Havertz. That's one reason he's in the team, and he wins so many. So it's actually not really 50-50 because the way we've organised it and to get players around him, it's not just a punt upfield. It's a targeted, direct.
Yeah.
And it pushes the team back, and we vary that up. So it's very hard for teams to press us because we've got different options. So it's adapting to the moment.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. And we should also have an Arsenal counter for how many times you bring them up, I suppose.
Sorry.
But I completely agree with what you say. And it's the same as what I said earlier with Burnley, how they kept on doing something and were not doing it right. So they were conceding a lot of goals.
And they refused to change.
Yeah.
That's bonkers.
That is an extreme case, isn't it?
Yeah.
So we can say that... we can safely say that not every team did what Burnley did.
No, although Southampton we're only 7 games into the season, but they're
God, you hate
bottom of the
Southampton,
league,
don't you?
and they're
It's
still
like the
playing.
third or fourth time you've had to go at Southampton. What have they done to you?
They're out on the far extreme with Man City for passing it through.
Yeah, which I'm sure if we look at a trend of teams coming up into the Prem, there's probably something about them changing certain tactics in order to try and
adapt to survive, kind of thing.
Yeah,
in a higher league. Yeah.
And again, it's a high risk, high reward situation. So they're hoping for the high reward.
But I think the risk is higher, though. That's the thing, isn't it?
Risk is definitely higher for them than it is for teams like City, the teams that have the better players and the better coaches. Definitely, the risk is lower and the reward is higher. I agree with that, and it's better with Everton, for example. We're actually quite good at just hoofing it if we want.
Yeah, and you're on that far end of the Opta scale in terms of
exactly.
The more
direct.
Yeah. And that's fine,
However, we still lose a lot of games.
Yeah, that's the thing. So it's not a definite... That's the thing with these stats. That's what I was trying to sort of get onto earlier, is that these stats give us a guide, but in general, there's also the eye test. There's also... We look at the players and how they do it. One other factor I want to bring in is how defending now you can't challenge like you used to be able to. The number of cards that are given for so many petty and silly things. It's more about how clever you are rather than how talented you are defensively.
Yeah.
If you had defenders from, Rio Ferdinand, Sol Campbell, John Terry's era, and Tony Adams, that kind of thing, to now, where I'm trying to think of Harry Maguire, Saliba, Gabriel,
Van Dijk. Yeah.
And then
that's another thing
we should think comparatively.
If you think about the best defenders that we've seen in our lifetime compared to the current players, well, I shouldn't say in our lifetime as though we've ended our lifetime. From when we were kids. So 90s to noughties
growing up
era,
looking up to kind of thing.
Yeah, and then look at the current crop. Let's see. So now there'd be Van Dijk, Saliba, Gabriel.
Maybe Diaz from City.
Yeah, Diaz from City. Stones is classed as very good, but I think he's a good English.
I think he's
defender,
a good ball-playing...
Yeah.
They call it a ball-playing defender, but I don't think he's necessarily a great defender.
No, I wouldn't see him as that.
He's a good
he's an Everton legend, but
yeah.
And around the world, it's really difficult now, actually. It's
Sergio Ramos is retired now, so you probably wouldn't get him in there, would you? So
Thiago Silva's back in Brazil now, I think.
Yeah.
And Yeah, otherwise...
It's already difficult, isn't it?
It's really difficult.
Yeah.
But then if you go, let's say from 20, 30 years, we've already said Tony Adams, Rio, John Terry...
Sol Campbell,
yeah. Then you got Maldini, Nesta...
around the world, yeah.
Yeah, Cannavaro...
Yeah,
you just got
even like the wing. So we've got Ashley Cole. So that still counts, and Cafu,
yeah, Roberto Carlos.
Wow, yeah,
Puyol. You just got so many people
you could go through so many,
and any one of them you could make an argument for being the best you've ever seen.
If they were playing today, I'd love Jaap Stam.
He's probably the best I've ever seen.
Yeah, I'm just gonna say Martin Keown. He was a brilliant defender.
I'll cut it out.
Just want to put that out there.
But yeah, there's so many that you can immediately name. We just named 10, 15 names, whereas we struggled for a fifth name.
That's it. I'm thinking about Harry Maguire to put into the modern list.
He actually starts creeping into the list, doesn't he?
Who else is there? But I know defending is maybe it's a team sport, as we said at the very beginning, but individually, one-on-one defending is
they're not allowed to anymore. That's the problem. Whereas they could before. If you look at really tough midfielders, for example, you can immediately think of Keane and Vieira and a bunch of these players because they were allowed to be tough. They were allowed to be Makelele, exactly. Yeah. Brilliant. Whereas now you could say Rodri, absolutely. One of the greatest in the world,
isn't it? You might say Rodri and Rice and a few players in the mid. I'm already struggling.
Exactly, yeah.
Plays for Real Madrid
because because they're not allowed to really do anything in terms of actually defending anymore. It's kind of slowly become like basketball. I don't know if you know much about basketball, but effectively,
end to end.
It's end to end. The whole idea is to basically be super high scoring. You end up when they say like it was a routing. It was 117 to 106. Like, a routing, you just let 106, but it's because the defenders aren't allowed to do anything. You touch them, you block them. No, it's a foul. No, it's a foul. All the time, and football slowly become that. It's this whole idea of all the rules are basically siding towards the attackers. I think there's more goals.
It seems like the only real physicality is now in the air when you're challenging for headers and things, and even then refs give fouls for stupid.
Yeah, even when two players go up for it, and then and the whistle's blown, he's just like, oh, I'll favour the attacker.
I saw it going back to that England game against Greece. I saw just the players diving around just play. And why is the ref giving? It's just awful. Whereas that didn't. There were always kind of things you disagreed with the refs, but you were allowed proper challenges. And I miss those. That's one thing I should have put into the previous episode.
Yeah,
where we're talking about things we change football these days, how football's now boring or And that's the defending. That sometimes when you see a clean but a really good, strong challenge, and you win the ball back or you tackle the attacker, you stop their attack, it's so satisfying. It would get in the stadium, it would get the fans stood up and round of applause and stuff.
Yeah,
it was so brilliant to see, and you don't really see it these days. You see a few challenges. Everton are actually one of the only teams that we were watching them the other weekend, and it was quite still satisfying to see that they give. They get stuck in.
Yeah,
but you can't get away with what you used to be able to, and it's not all just it used to be dirty. It wasn't. Yes,
no, that was part of it, wasn't it?
That was some of it, but there was also a lot of really good defending happening, whereas now it's more how you read the game. You have to kind of win the ball back by positioning yourself in the right area.
It's far more tactical. And that's something I kind of have that's why I sort of defend the passing out the back, is that if we start watching football now, so past the the era, the tough tackling era, then that's all you know. And in fact, if that's all you know, then imagine how beautiful the game is for you, thinking, look at all the goals, all the entire game is favoured towards the attack. And so even the defenders are becoming more attack-minded, the goalkeeper's becoming attack-minded. That's a lot more attacking football. Like Gary Lineker said recently, he loves watching Spurs right now because for him, the beautiful game is all about the attack. And Spurs are all about the attack right now.
Absolutely. I respect in a certain way, but when we're talking about defending, and Spurs lost against Brighton because Brighton, from passing up from the back, is kind of everything of what we're talking about now. Brighton are really good at sort of attracting the opposition to come onto them because they kind of just wait and pass it on the back until you start pressing, and then they try and pass through you. It's really high risk. It's one of the highest risk strategies in the league, to be honest. And then so they can get in behind Spurs, which they did, and they ended up winning the game.
Yeah.
And Spurs sort of paid the price, really, for being Spurs, really. but for that all-out attack, we're not being able to defend at the other end.
Yeah.
So if we decided that defending is worse these days, Seth, is that the...
Yeah, that's our fix.
That's our fix. How do we fix defending? I'm going to stand by. So my fix would be the time and place. Passing off on the back is absolutely fine if it's playing against the right opposition and you've got the right players to do it. Doing it just blindly, no matter what players you have and who you're up against, is madness.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I would have said the same for a fix. I think I just don't like what people like Shearer and stuff were saying, that they're so against it and stuff. They're just basically thinking back in my day. We were kind of saying back in our day. However, we're talking about also the difference, the beauty of it now, for example. And things do move on, and the way to get goals, in order to get a goal, you have to increase the risk that you're willing to take. And so that's exactly what passing out from the back is.
And that's what the top sides are able to take advantage of more, because they have the resources to get the players to be able to do it more. And that's the thing. So I think, to conclude on this, I think attacking has improved in general because of the change of the style that we've just talked about.
And the rules.
And the rules and the pitch and everything else. It doesn't mean the strikers are better than they used to be. And
absolutely,
if you don't believe us, you're going to have to go back and watch some... Well, the thing is, it's such a shame they couldn't go back and watch history. But go and watch some season reviews from some of the top sides.
Well, they can go back and watch history. You can't watch the future, but you can watch the present and the history.
Can you watch this? You can watch clips of the history.
Hey, I'm sure you can find every single game in the Premier League.
Watch all 90 minutes of it.
Yeah,
right. Go and do your research.
Yeah, you see it as a high risk.
That's your homework
Situation.
Right, so it's another one solved there, Seth. I think it's time for some fantasy
because
football
the idea of passing out.
We didn't have anything in the last week because of the internationals, but fortunately the Premier League's back
you want to minimise the risk of losing possession. Because if you're route one to the halfway line, you've suddenly given yourself a 50-50 chance of getting
juicy.
However, if you pass
your tips out, John.
Then
John's juicy tips.
Maintaining possession.
Yeah.
So you minimise the risk of losing possession. And then my second theory
Don't
about
be a
passing
lemon.
out from the
Listen
back
to these
is
fresh,
that you
juicy
give yourself
tips.
the maximum
FPL
chance
is
to make
back,
the
and it's
opposition
time to start
play the way
tinkering with
you
your
want.
teams again.
Again, if you
Did you know,
it,
in the next
then
2 weeks,
it's kind of potluck as to
best
what's
attack
happen
in
where
the
it's going
game,
to
thrown
go.
it up in the
Manchester
air.
City
Yeah,
are playing the
Yeah,
two
you can try
worst
and
teams
get the
at
goalkeeper to
defending,
practice exactly where to put it in
Wolves and
stuff, but
Southampton.
effectively,
So,
you give
we're looking at them
everyone
today.
50-50 chance.
However, I wouldn't invest in City's defence right now, as they've only kept one clean sheet so far this season. In midfield, I'd back Phil Foden to make a big return to FPL over the next few weeks. He got 230 points last season, and I think he's going to start racking up the points again. So, the defender I'm bringing this week is actually a goalkeeper. It's Kameen Kelleher for Liverpool. With Alisson out for the next few weeks, or even more, with a hamstring injury, Kameen should get quite a few clean sheets, at a cheap price of 4.4 million. And up front, it can only be Erling Haaland. Coming off 2 blanks before the international break, he's going to be extra fired up. I'm expecting at least 1 hat-trick in the next 2 games. So, maybe it's time to triple captain. Juicy.
Thanks for that, John, as always. He's a quirky fellow, isn't he?
yeah, let's use that word.
That's quirky. Nice. He's nice. He's brilliant. He's got some great tips there, though, I must say.
Yeah.
And he's fighting at the top of the leaderboard as well, but obviously because there weren't any fantasy football games, it's the same as before. I think John's in second, isn't he, behind your dear old
the
buddy?
Englishman, yeah.
Sorry, Sam. I apologise on behalf of the podcast. Are we drawing the episode to a close there then, Sess?
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
We can all sleep easy tonight now.
Another one solved.
Yeah, absolutely. So thanks for listening, as always. As I said at the start, please do spread it around, the love and also the podcast.
Oh, yeah. If all 12 of you, like I say, tell another 12 people, that's 144. So that's the next step.
Tell another 12. I'm trying to do the maths now. Yeah, okay. Yeah. So, please do follow.
I can do that much. I can't multiply 144 by 12.
Square root of... Right, so, please do like, subscribe, share, and all that kind of stuff. And, have a nice week. It's goodbye from me.
And it's a goodbye from me.